Welcome to the Wisdom Check by Tabletop to Keyboard. This is going to be our bi-weekly podcast where we discuss things such as Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, I think maybe we need to turn up my mic a little bit, guys. How about some more gain?
This is the intro to end all intros. Talk about Dungeons, Dragons, and
Now, I don't think that's proper. This is a family show after all. This is the intro we can use, fellas. It's good, clean fun for everyone. Welcome to the Wisdom Check, where we have wholesome conversations about the dilemmas we face every day.
Nah, hold on a second. I got your intro right here. Yeah, that's better. Welcome to the Wisdom Check, where I'm right, Jeff's wrong. We're gonna have guests on to talk about it. It's gonna be awesome, because I said so.
He is right. He did say so. I don't know. Is surf music the best music for a podcast about D&D?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
This just in, nobody can agree on our intro for this podcast. So we're just going to start. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. Roll for initiative. Fuck. A 1. It's like every time.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's another Monday night. Here we are at TT2KB with the Wisdom Check. I am Dustin, your host here today. With me is... Oh, wait. That's not Jeff over there.
No, I'm not.
Nope. Jeff is out today. He is hanging out in the chat there as Rain survives. But today with us, we got Levi stepping in to fill in for Jeff tonight. Levi, say hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
All right. And
I'm here.
Yes, you are. And Kingfishy coming in with them cheers already. Thank you for that.
Ooh. Let's get
And we have with us today Andrew from LordsofGallipaeGames. So say hi to everybody there, Andrew.
Hello. How are you?
All right. So as we usually do here off the top, we got a few announcements. First and foremost, next week here on the show, it'll be just me and Jeff. Hopefully Jeff will be back. He's recovering from an allergic reaction. It's kept him off screen tonight. We will be doing. We'll be talking
Con Plague times 2.
Yeah.
It took him down.
Serious. We hope he recovers by next week, because next week it's supposed to be me and Jeff, just the two of us next week, no guest, and we're going to be talking about Pathfinder 2. So hopefully he's spending all this time reading up. And
yeah, I'm sure he's researching.
I'm sure he is. So that'll be next week. And when we do next week's talk about Pathfinder 2, we are going to be doing a giveaway of that dice necklace that we got from ttrpg Sands. So that'll be next week. So you got to be a sub to win. Get your subs in now while you can. So next week you can walk away with this kick-ass necklace.
Yeah, it'd be hard to have a 2-man show with just one guy, he says.
It's
you trying to tell me that Dustin can't hold a show by himself?
First and foremost, I'm almost insulted that he doesn't think that I can't get 2 other people on this show last fucking minute. I can get 2 more people on here like that. Like, come on. You should know better than that by now.
Dustin's a summoner at this point. He'll be like, type, I need 15 people. And then...
Hey, this is what I do. Also, talking this week here on TT2KB, we are. Oh, I say it was a Fruitzilla sighting. Hey, Fruit. Hope you enjoy that new emote, buddy. Things just for you. But this week, Wednesday, you're going to be able to find some of the guys playing Vermintide, which is a Warhammer video game. Nice. And one of the really cool things about this game is that
Thanks, Grim Reaper.
Fruitzilla says 15 needed. I don't know what to talk about. Okay. But one of the cool things about Vermintide is that if you're in the chat, you can actually vote to create which enemies show up in the video game to attack the players.
That's awesome.
And you can also vote like which buffs and stuff they get like
That's
throughout
so
the game.
cool.
And it is so cool to sit down to. Me and Georgie, I don't know if Georgie's on here yet. He might stop in later. We were in there last time when they were playing it kind of as a test run. And oh man, it was so much fun to do even as a viewer. So if you haven't checked it out, that'll be Wednesday. And it is a hell of a lot of fun. And then on Thursday, the following night here on TT2KB, you're going to be able to find me and Levi and Clint, who's behind the scenes today. And maybe one other guy. I don't know if Cam's gonna, or if Cam will make it, or Tim, or whoever else we might have on that night. But it'll be at least the three of us. We'll be playing Sea of Thieves. So if you want to hear Levi do his French accent, go for it, Levi. You know you want to.
No, they have to wait till.
They gotta wait. They gotta wait to get it. All right. Well,
they gotta
Thursday,
earn it. Then they can meet the ginger Frenchman.
We didn't intend it to be this way, but we kind of have it set up like this is our video game week. And then the following week is like our tabletop roleplay week. Like it's kind of goes back and forth a bit that way. Not exactly intended, but that's how it's working out so far. So that's about all of our announcements, at least up here at the top of the show. So we are going to go ahead and get started here talking with our guest of honor here, Andrew. So Andrew, let's talk a little bit about how you got started in tabletop role-playing games. Like what did you start out with?
That's a bit of a hazy question. It's been so long. I started out with, I think I started with AD&D, and then
that's a good place to start.
And then that wasn't going so well because my brother and I were so young, and my dad moved us over to Hero Quest.
Oh, nice!
And I still have a copy of it.
Those are expensive now and difficult to find.
Yeah,
so cool.
I got this copy for my bar mitzvah present, and
that's a good bar mitzvah game.
That's fantastic.
And so it's been with me for a while, but it's complete. It's got everything. The box is in terrible shape, but it's got everything and all that. But so we moved to Hero Quest for a bit, and then when we showed that we were ready to move back into a as my dad called it, a real role-playing game.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. But Hero Quest is a good starter place for
it's
people.
Absolutely
it
like
it's a
the king
starter.
of like of prologue dungeon crawl. Like, do you want to give it a shot? This is what it feels like. So
yeah, especially for children, because it's very simple and it's very
and the dice have skulls on them.
Yeah, it was cool. I love the minis that came with it. Those were my favorite parts.
I honestly feel like the minis are some of the first minis most everybody has painted.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
If they were gonna paint a mini, that's where they started.
Them. We did not paint those minis. We painted other minis, but we would not paint those minis.
Too sacred?
Apparently. So when we moved on from Hero Quest, we moved to Rolemaster, which was a big step up in the complicated department.
Sure. That's all D100s, right?
Yeah. And that's where I started to experiment with my own systems. Was using I like the D percentile from Rolemaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I started playing around with systems with just playing with miniatures and just coming up with, well, you roll this to attack, you roll this for, that was pretty much it. You roll for attack and that's your damage, and you have 100 health or 50 health or whatever.
Sure.
It was really simple. I was still really young.
How old were you at the time that you started trying to make your own system?
When I first started playing around with dice, seeing what would be good in a system, I was maybe like 9 or 10.
Nice.
And I was just with my dad's 2,000 miniature collection.
2,000 miniature collection?
That was the miniatures that were done and painted and everything.
Holy cow.
They were done? Was he a Warhammer guy?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that a war game?
He was back in the hobby of miniature of collecting miniatures before D&D came out.
1,000? Are they all fantasy or are they like military?
Many of them were fantasy. Most of them were fantasy. Some of them were science fiction or historical military.
Oh, Fruit just gifted 5 people with subs.
Nice.
Thank you.
It's raining Fruit.
He wastes no time.
His generosity knows no bounds.
If you got a Fruitzilla gifted sub, you now have a Fruitzilla emote. Make sure you show him
2,000 minis. That's bonkers. I don't think I've ever seen 2,000 minis in one space outside of a convention.
Yes, at conventions, I've seen tables that might have that many on it. But
does your dad have like shelves or a giant table of them or a case or what's he got?
He had shelf after shelf after shelf of minis.
Are they like really shallow on the wall, like for thimbles, you know? Like
it was interesting. He's now actually, I think, I don't want to get in trouble saying this, but I think he's actually selling them now because he has no place to put them. And
sure,
yeah, they're not needed anymore. He doesn't play tabletop RPGs anymore, and he doesn't play war games with those minis.
That's sad.
Yeah, he's probably going to get mad at me for saying all that.
Yeah, that's the way we're all going, isn't it?
Yeah, it happens eventually. Like I've got mine. I don't have 2,000. What I do have proudly presented over here in the corner of my man cave, where they will sit for all eternity. And
honestly, though, with everything going digital now, I was big into minis for a while, and now it's all Photoshop. Everything I do is Photoshop.
Yeah,
especially now that we stream it all.
I'm more of a cartographer now than anything else.
Yeah, I have about 700 that are scattered about my room here.
I like how your bar for normal is 2,000, so you're like, I only have 700. It's not a big deal, guys.
I mean,
mine aren't painted yet. His 2,000 were painted and on bases that he came up with a system for bases for his wargaming.
Yeah, you have to for that sometimes.
And so his 2,000 were all finished. My 700 aren't even mostly finished. He had a bunch that were ready, that needed to be painted, needed to be put on bases. And that 2,000 also didn't include ones that had broken, that need to be repaired.
Holy cow.
So there's a triage ward of minis outside the small village of 2,000.
I'm not gonna lie, I have the same thing. I was thinking in my head, I got a 7,000 point vampire counts army, and I got some Skaven, and I got some Tomb Kings, and like between them all, I probably have between 300 to 400 total minis. And I do have small cups over there with each individual pieces of minis, where all the pieces have been put into a cup. So one day I might reassemble the ones that are broken. But
one day,
I'll never get into it.
That one day, it's coming.
That one magic day,
definitely gonna happen. That one day,
it's so gonna happen.
One of my big projects is I want to photograph and catalog and organize on shelves all my minis, but it's gonna take way too long.
That's me and my comic books, man. I'm like, someday I'll bag and board all of them. Like, maybe I should let that dream die. Yeah, that's just something that's gonna happen at this point.
He had quite a collection of comic books too.
Well, it's
right. Jeff just nailed it in the chat. He says, "Good news is my vampire counts army is mostly zombies, so when they break, they just look better."
That's not wrong.
Right. That's why I haven't fixed half of them. If they lose a leg, zombies can lose a leg.
It's all that much better.
That's one reason I have a lot of skeletons.
Well, enough with Dad's minis. Let's talk about when did you feel it was to be called? When did you come up with a name? When do you feel like it had an identity?
Well, Levi may not know this yet, but let's start a little sooner. Tell him how you started with this game. This is a story all about us.
This particular game is a completely different story. It didn't start with messing around with minis. I was in 6th grade, and my math teacher said, "Hey, you guys get a project. You get to make a game that has math in it. And that could be anything that has any dice or numbers or anything like that. If it includes numbers, it's math. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a tabletop role-playing game in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
And I did. It was horribly incomplete. It was horribly unbalanced. It made no sense, but it was done in 2 weeks. And
That's awesome.
I got an A on the project.
And you got an A!
You got an A.
That's all you need.
Did you take this into your teacher? Do you have to explain to them what a tabletop role-playing game is before you did your
Or did they
presentation
already
on this?
A little.
Was
And
yours
it
like
wasn't
the
a
one with, like-
presentation, it was a 15-minute playtest. They didn't even get to read the rules before it was done.
Oh, that's great. So, did
Sixth
you have a
grade.
partner? Is this like a group project where you had to tell the others, like, no, listen,
no,
you get to take this one off. I got this.
me.
Like,
This is all
That's
me.
awesome.
this is all you.
So,
And
after that, you get it started there. At what point were you like, this is awesome, and I want to keep going and adding to it and making it bigger?
well, when I told my dad I am going to make a tabletop role-playing game, he said, "You don't want to do that. I've done it before." And I'm like, "I do want to do that, and I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to make lots of money off of it." He's like, no, you're not.
So, way to go, supportive dad.
But so I've always wanted to publish this game, but I never really got serious about it until college.
Sure.
When D&D 4th edition came out, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of D&D. I loved 3.5. I loved 3.0.
See,
And when
this guy's talking sense, everybody. He understands the 4th is trash and utter garbage,
I didn't
and
say
anything
that.
else that is going to make rain. Like, totally agree with me and how horrible 4th Ed is.
And somewhere DM Chuck just unsubbed. So, but I mean,
4E is fine for certain people. You know, if you like it, you like it. That's fine.
yeah, I think Fourth Ed did a good job of helping create a whole bunch of TTRPGs because everybody seems like they were looking for somewhere else to go. Pathfinder, all these other places came out and was like, hey, we're gonna put together games because no one liked 4E. Like,
you know what? The one good thing I'll say for 4E is inspired so much competition that it gave birth to 5E. So thank God for that. I'll say that.
Yeah, I don't much care for 5E. I will admit that, but that's mostly because I don't want to invest in something that I'm just playing for fun anymore. I invest so much time in my own games.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I
gotcha.
Most of my playing is now playtesting.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, sure. Once you're in the business, I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, half the time, if you check like any interviews with creators, they're only vaguely aware of the pop culture that's going on around them because they're so invested in their own creations. Like, it doesn't matter who they are. And
I'm gonna call out my business partner here on this one. He does a lot for me behind the scenes, but he does absolutely nothing with the with the game creation. Like, I do everything game creation. I do everything cartography. I do everything with almost every aspect of the company. So he does a lot for me. It's just not what you come into contact with when you play my games.
So how did he get? So you started this out as a project in a math class. How did you bring him in? When did he get involved?
Well, my buddy Thomas and I met in high school, and I got him into role playing games. He was. Let's see if I can get this right. He was playing Magic the Gathering with a couple of friends, and I came up to their table and I'm like, "Hey, if you like that game, you might like D&D." And he's like, "What's that?" And he was the one friend out of that group of friends that I actually converted into a D&D player.
Well done.
And sometime early in college, we decided that he was going to help me with Heroes of Gallipae. And then he went into the Navy, and it kind of drifted apart of what he was doing. Which, by the way, thank you, Thomas, for your service in the Navy. I haven't told you yet today.
Thank you, Thomas.
But he didn't do as much after he went into the Navy directly. And then once he got out and he started getting more free time that he could chat with me and hang out with me, we started getting back into the working together thing. And earlier this year, I think, is when he officially came on board as a part owner in the company.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you got him on board with you now, and he's starting to pick up a few things that he's kind of doing for you, just not in the actual creation stuff.
Right.
So you're doing mechanics and lore both then for your game?
Yes.
All right. So why don't we get to talking about one half of this anyway? We did get a chance, me and Jeff. Levi unfortunately couldn't make it the other night to play with us. Get a chance to actually play a one-shot session, a small little quick adventure in Lords of Gallipae.
With booze.
With lots of booze. Gallipae. Sorry. I keep
Heroes.
saying Heroes of Gallipae.
Yeah, Lords of Gallipae is the company.
Oh, okay. Man, I've been doing this wrong the whole time. My apologies.
That's okay.
Heroes of Gallipae. We did get a chance to play the other night over on Notorious DMG. I have been posting the VOD out today. If you haven't got a chance to check it out, you can find it in our Discord. You can find it in a lot of other Discords. I put it up there today, or on Notorious DMG TV. And one of the interesting aspects that we saw of it is that there's a very in-depth character creation kind of process here that you really kind of have put forth as sort of the maybe one of the stronger points of your game in general, is that you can build literally about anything you want to. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you came about creating this character creation type process?
Well, the character creation type process, there was no, let's see, I'll do this and that'll make it really super unique. It was just, oh, well, this is how the character creation is now. You just pick a class, and that was pretty much it in the original game. When I first made it for the project, that's all there was. But then over time, I started adding in small details that just sort of gave it a little bit more customization. Like the first one was I added in races, and then I added in deities, and then I added in what equates to feats in D&D features, and then I added in this, that, and the other, and it just kept growing from there. And so what originally was just a role-playing game that I held in high esteem because of its simplicity became a role-playing game that I held in high esteem because of its customization and replayability. So
let's talk a little bit about some of these choices and things. When you go to build a character in Heroes of Gallipae, do you start out by picking your class and your race? Is that where you start, or are these things that you do? I assume you start with that, and then you tack on the feats, everything else. So when you go about through this process, I guess what I'm looking for is like how much do you get to do at character creation, like at level 1, versus how much do you do as you build?
Almost everything is at level 1. Okay. Every time you level up, you spend 10 points to increase your standard abilities. Every 4 levels, you get a D4 in your random attributes. But other than that, everything else is level 1. Except for spells. You get more spells as you get higher level, and you get higher level spells as you get higher level. But you will mainly choose your path and the way you're going to build your character at level 1. You're going to do most of the more influential things at level 1.
Okay.
Now, I have built characters that have specialized in spells that they didn't get at level 1, but that is something that can be very, very powerful, but it also comes with sacrifices because you're gonna suck until you get there.
Sure.
Yeah,
how
that's
many,
kind of like playing wizard all the time. You always suck at the beginning, like a couple of bad rolls, and you're done for.
What are your race class choices?
What are your race class choices?
How many classes, how many races do you have in Heroes of Gallipae?
Oh man, there
like a lot?
are 6 or 7 classes, I think.
Okay.
And the races, at least 13 to 15 races.
And
Okay.
you're still adding, right? You're still adding new ones in all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's much more easy to
Mine-
just chuck in races for like flavor and minor adjustments, and then classes are harder to manage, I'm sure, because it's more balance issues.
Yes and no.
Okay.
The races will matter more at level 1,
Okay.
but it's easy to create classes. The only where it comes in to be difficult to create new classes is because I have specialization classes for every class but all hand. And I have spells for so many of the classes as well. So it's extra work to create the classes, but it's not really difficult.
Okay.
The races, on the other hand, you've got to balance the negatives with the positives. And that has been difficult at times, especially knowing what positives, what positives you can get away with at level 1, because you're going to have all those positives and negatives at level 1. So knowing what ones you can get away with without unbalancing level 1 and making level 1 characters either too powerful or too weak. Most of the racial abilities are things like +5 attack damage or +10 hit. Well, not hits, it's now health. +10 health or -2 defense or something like that. And all those things are things that you can gain through spending points in those same abilities. However, there's a limit to each ability, to how many points you can spend in each ability. So the racial bonuses add to that ability without adding to that limit. So you get more faster.
Okay.
So one of the things I think that really stick out, if anyone was to watch that play test that we did the other night, I think the first thing, once we get kind of into the bar scene and we actually start getting to some die rolls and the mechanics of the game, I think the first thing that's going to pop out is to just how many dice you roll in this game. It is
Yes.
It is without going in not knowing anything else about your game. Like, I don't know what level our characters technically were, if those were right out the box characters, whatever. But like the first time you roll level 4. Oh yeah, that's right. We were level 4 and the druids were level 3. You did say that. That's right. It was on the sheet. I do remember now. But like, it's an astronomical amount of dice that are rolled in these things.
A good estimation that you're going to be rolling with any given archer or fighter is you're going to be rolling 2d20 plus 5d6 plus static bonus.
And then there's a static bonus that adds on to the end of it. So like the numbers are quite big. So I was curious, and I think anyone who watches would be curious. I mean, we're not going to get a breakdown where all those dice come from just yet. But why so many?
Why big
dice?
numbers? Yeah.
Why the big numbers? What advantage does that give you as a game creator with that many dice and numbers?
Well, I find that when you increase the numbers you're working with, it's easier to balance because you've got more give. Your minimum is lower and your maximum is higher, or your minimum is the same and your maximum is higher. So there's more in between. If you're stuck with a deep 20 system, this is just how it felt to me when I was trying to balance a 3.5 campaign after I had played my games quite a bit. I had a lot of difficulty because when your AC is supposedly really good at 22, the bonuses, you don't get as much give in those bonuses. Either
in 3.5 you're talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, we totally understand that.
Yeah. We used to have a cleric, and then it became standard operating procedure that in the 2 to 3 minutes before a fight, there was a standard buff package that they would all start like sharing as a group before a fight began, and that alone would always and drastically change the course of the fight.
Yeah.
And then Pathfinder was that, but a little bit worse because it's so crunchy.
So yeah, so your experiences in 3.5 is what drove you to think I need to create a system I can balance, whereby further down the line and playing the game, it'll still be able to balance itself. And the conclusion you came up to was just massive amounts of dice.
The conclusion I came to was higher numbers. The dice was a complete happy accident. Well, not complete happy accident. I do like to roll a lot of dice. I tend to make my games the way I like to play them.
Yeah.
And just hope that that's how other people like to play them.
That's the nature of a creator, you know. You make what you like.
I love to roll lots of dice, but that's not the entire reason why I do roll lots of dice. It's also, once you get those higher numbers, if you still want a more random number in those higher numbers, you're going to be rolling more dice instead of coming up with like these weird dice like a D32 or something like that. You're going to be rolling several D6s,
which is not unheard of. You can see a strange die like that in like Dungeon Crawl Classics has a lot of extra dice in there that you don't normally see in a normal D&D game.
But I didn't want people to have to buy specific dice just for my game. I wanted them to go, hey, I've played D&D. Can I use my D&D dice? And be like, yeah, you totally can.
So at a high level in Heroes of Gallipae, are we in Final Fantasy damage numbers like thousands and thousands and thousands?
Not thousands, but certainly could be hundreds.
That's awesome.
That's great. For those who didn't see it, your numbers, I think last night or the other night, I had like 190 health at level 4. And damage. Hold on, Levi. Hold on. Levi clearly didn't get to watch the video, so I got to get him up to speed here on what we're dealing with. I then had there was like kind of an armor class they had to hit me first. Okay. And then I have a damage reduction, almost kind of. So then I would take that number and subtract it from the 150 incoming or whatever.
Right. I like the idea of an armor class and DR. That's cool.
It has both. It works in both ways. So I like that touch. You have to overcome a certain amount. And there's different ways you can build to, like, you want to be a guy who's really hard to hit but has few hit points. Yeah. Or you want to be a guy who's easy to hit but has like a ton of hit points.
Oh, yeah, so I like that.
So just to give you an idea of what he's referring to when he's talking about these, we'll go ahead and continue with your explanation of the dice systems.
And not only that, but here's where it gets a monkey wrench gets thrown into it. And it's something that I'm still on the fence about, even though the game is published. elemental, well, specifically, any spell damage overcomes armor, period. And armor is the damage reduction he was talking about. And toughness counts for most of that spell damage. So toughness replaces armor in most spells. So let's say you got hit with a firebolt for 54 damage. You have a toughness of 8, which is the maximum you can have at first level. That's a significant damage chunk that you're still taking when you could also have an armor of over 54.
Right.
So it would reduce your damage normally that you would take to very, very low, but since it's toughness, you're still taking a heavy chunk of damage. And then there's spells like Stinging Swarm of Bees, which is why that was so effective, that do physical damage. And the rules state that if a spell does physical damage, even if it doesn't specify, its physical damage is force damage. Now, force damage overcomes armor and toughness. So there is no minus from force damage.
So that stuff sounds like that would be really hard to balance.
It is. And the way I handled that was I actually just decreased the amount of force damage that people could deal.
Interesting. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry. I thought you'd...
But the problem with that is they can still specialize in those spells.
Right. You still have those options available with feats and other things, or, well, whatever you're calling like feats, but things of that nature that you could allow you to specialize towards a particular kind of damage.
Yeah. The way that works is you spend points in damage as you level up, the 10 points I told you about that you get to spend every level. 3 points in damage gives you 1d6 of that type of damage, whether it's ranged, attack, or spell damage. If you specialize in a spell, it's 3 points of damage gives you 2d6 in that spell.
Okay. So it definitely helps jack your damage up a little bit more then.
Yeah, sure. And that's where I got I was telling you about this, Dustin, on Saturday. That's where I got the mage that cast the 76d6 firebolt.
76.
Yeah. See, this is it's insane. Like people think Pathfinder has this game has some serious math. Like, so Jeff here, who actually in the chat, he says that when you have lots of dice, it tends to push the results towards the mean value because you're not dealing one die that's going to roll either really high or really low. You've got a whole series of dice. And so you're going to end up closer to the mean of what all those values ranges should be by the time you're done. He wants to know if that was a deliberate motivation. Did you want a more standard, regular amount of damage?
That was not deliberate, but it was a happy accident. Because technically, you still can get those really high numbers or those really low numbers. And the mean that we're pushed towards is not necessarily exactly the mean. Usually it's somewhere around the mean.
Right. You're usually never going to hit it. But I mean, it does if you were to roll it the 100 times, your data points would start to gravitate towards that middle. You get kind of that bell curve.
Right.
If you were to plot them out. So, but that was not a deliberate thing that you wanted. It's just kind of part of this is what I wanted to do. And this is kind of part of what the results will end up looking like because of it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we'll talk a little bit now. Like we've mentioned some of the maybe more extreme cases of 70d6 firebolts. But let's talk a little bit about kind of how the breakdown of these dice pools work. So we're watching Jeff's character Jorah. He's swinging an axe, and the first thing we notice is like 4d6, and because it's not like when you see a macro written out in Roll20, it's like 17d6 just rolls up. They're in categories, so it's like plus 4d6. Plus 5d whatever plus this. So they're broken down. They come from different sources, and the first source actually is from your class, right? So whenever you're rolling, so the first group of dice comes from your class. So just having the class itself gives you X amount of dice before you do anything else?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about how those work. How does that work for the different classes?
So archers get 1d20 in attack damage and 2d20 in range damage. It's basically tailored to the character class's strengths. All hands are a little more complicated. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. Mages get 1d20 in attack and as spell in spell damage. They don't get range damage. Fighters get 2d20 plus 3 in attack. Paladins get 4d10 in attack. Priests get 1d20 plus 1d10 plus 1d6, I think. They're the really weird ones. And then let's see. The way it happened though is I was just giving them what I felt would be good minimums and maximums, and then I started trying to figure out what dice would amount to those minimums and maximums.
Okay.
That's how most of these things originated. Eventually I started just doing it from the dice straight up and going, you know what? I think these dice should be the ones that are rolled instead of going, this is the minimum, this is the maximum. But just because it's hard for me, it's hard for my brain in particular to do the math of let's look at the minimum and maximum and figure out the dice that are going to give me that. It's hard for me to do that in my head. I had other people help me with it, but I didn't want to rely on that.
Sure.
Okay.
So once I started getting a good feel for what dice are going to give me what answers or what results, I started just judging from the dice instead of judging from minimums. And so the class is going to give you generally close to either 1 to 20 or 2 to 40. Somewhere close to that.
And that's a pretty hefty range. I mean, when you consider dice, you know, like I said, damage, health pools, I guess we were averaging just under 200 at level 4. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Definitely I guess the next thing I need to ask, because I think this is kind of the next question that comes to my mind is we were playing this on Roll20 and you had everything macroed out. Now, even the static bonuses at the end, which you said the static bonus that we were seeing like plus 35 is actually a breakdown of like the weapon bonuses, some other features, things like that might be adding into that total of like plus 35 after all the dice are rolled. Have you played this at a table, like in person with people? Because it seems like an astronomical amount of dice to be throwing at any one time. I can't have 5 dice in my hands without dropping one.
It's got to sound like a hailstorm.
Like it's got to. Yeah, it's got to be. I would almost like to just try to see people play in this at a table. Like I had to play it on Roll20, which is neat enough, but to see it in live has got to be something else with all those dice getting thrown.
It's interesting
because on average they're throwing 6 dice, or no, you said 70 d6.
That was an extreme case, though, to be fair.
That got nerfed.
That's like Pun the Destroyer for Heroes of Gallipae. Like you can't go based off of that one example. Like
not only that, but that was legendary level. I mean, it was maximum level of the ability. So yeah, actually, all of my play testing was done at table.
Okay.
Instead of on Roll20. I didn't start Roll20 until about a year after this was published. I now use it for all my play testing because it's hard to get my friends to come over or for me to go over there.
That's everybody. That's us too.
We understand that.
That's our life.
I thought it was hard in high school. I thought it was hard in college, and it just keeps getting harder as you go up.
Yeah, that is the truth.
Yeah.
But it turns out actually high school was easy because I was having like 4 games a week in high school.
That's like the dream.
I know high school was great for me. I
4
loved
games
high
a
school.
week.
Man, that's crazy. I mean, we
That's
were good to
awesome.
get 2 or 3 sessions in a week, maybe. But that
Yeah,
was like the
maybe.
most. So,
But a good number of those were with my dad. I will give
That's
him
cool.
credit. He was my steady income of game playing for a long time. But yeah, everything was at the table, and I have friends who have dice, obviously, but for some reason they always used my dice because I have well over 1,000 dice. And
Well
it's
over 1,000 dice. That's
wow,
I thought I had a
1,000?
lot. 1,000? Really, 1,000?
yes.
He's
I was
like, I have
looking around
counted.
to see if my bag of dice was near, but it is not, and it is actually a drawer of dice now. So if I tilted
Is
it
it a
up, to the
backpack of?
camera,
Is it a Heward's handy haversack of dice? And that.
Not really.
That's crazy. 1,000 dice.
It's a dice keg.
It is. It's that dice king.
I wish I was. I really do. Among the people I know, I definitely am, but I have come to realize that my selection of dice is puny, and I need to buy more dice. But yeah, I was the player who had that 76 D6 firebolt, and I would roll all the D6s at once. And they were all red D6s because you gotta pick the right.
You gotta theme them.
You gotta pick the right dice for the questions.
That's right.
So
And if it was Levi doing that, he would roll whatever the minimum amount is. If he
That's right.
If he picked up 76 D6s, he would roll 76 for damage. We've heard it happen behind his DM screen a few times. So.
Yeah, it's all thunder and no lightning.
This would actually be as crazy as it sounds. This would actually be the worst game for Levi to play.
Yeah,
ever.
it would not work out for me.
well, there's a way to fix that. Just
I don't know if
play a
there's any way to
fighter.
fix his luck.
Yeah, I don't know.
There is. Play a fighter and do all your damage specialization in a weapon. Because when you're a fighter and you do damage specialization in a weapon, you add a static 5 instead of dice.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Well, that
So
solves my problem.
You're cranking up that the bonus
white
number at
damage.
the end. So
Yeah.
No bursting. It's all white damage,
It's a
people.
way for people who don't have the dice or don't want to use that many dice to still play the game and enjoy it.
So I think we've pretty well covered kind of how the mechanics sort of flow a little bit. Let's get into your lore a little. Now, one of the things you told me is that you really, really are trying to work towards getting your mechanics and your lore to sync up a little better. You're not quite happy with where it's at. So let's get a little into the lore. Tell us a little about the world that is Gallipae.
So I'm gonna say one thing before I actually jump into what Gallipae is and is like. What I meant by that is the next update to the game that I am posting is going to have links to my World Anvil page where every deity, monster, player race, and character mentioned in the rules will be a link to a World Anvil article on that deity, monster, player race, or whatever. So it's not that the rules don't mesh with the lore, it's that the rules aren't that the rule book isn't as well documented yet as I wish it to be. But having said that, I will dive into the lore a bit. So Gallipae is called Gallipae because in Godspeak, which is the language of deities and angels, it means place of the angels, I think, something like that. Home of the angels, place of the angels, something like that. And that is because in the Forgotten World, which is the first true era of Gallipae. It was originally a home to a bunch of really powerful archangels. Now, then the archangels started mingling with the gods, and that produced dragons. And then one of the dragons started producing lesser races like elves, dwarves, humans, gnomes, halflings. There were a couple more. And once those lesser races started coming in, the deities, or not the deities, but the archangels started getting all uppity and like, why do we have to share room with these guys? And that produced a big war between the heavens and the archangels that were living on Gallipae. And most of those archangels ended up either becoming demons like Oakhurst, or being trapped in items such as Boulder Fire or Dead King's Crown, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, and eventually the fallout from this war led to a much bigger war between all of the lesser races and the deities and everybody against a very powerful undead that was simply known as the Wraith. And the Wraith was not a Wraith. We don't know what he was. Nobody knows about him anymore. But, and he destroyed the Forgotten World. It was recreated as the First World. And the First World is where the game is set in.
Okay. So you're kind of like a post-cataclysm.
Yeah, and actually the one shot that we played was set in the Forgotten World. But that's just a little sidebar.
Do you consider your world to be your world is obviously then very high fantasy. I think we can say that it's very magic induced, very everything. There's a lot of magic in your world. It seems to be pretty proliferated with magic.
It is definitely a high fantasy world with lots of magic.
Do you like is magic like your favorite part of role playing games? Do you really like the magic classes, and if you were playing other systems?
I really have a hard time picking my favorite class. I love aspects about every class of any role playing game. I enjoy playing a rogue. I enjoy playing a paladin. I enjoy playing a fighter, a barbarian, a mage of any sort. Necromancers would probably be my favorite if I had to choose one.
Oh, so do you like raising lots of minions?
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite games ever is Diablo 2, and my favorite class build was the Minion Mancer.
Oh, the Necromancer was so fun. I remember Diablo 2. I had a Necromancer that did the minions, and my only problem with it was my computer at the time couldn't handle it. So, like, the more minions I raised, the more the game would lag out on me. I get mad at it. So, like, it'd lock up on me because that was like right at one of those points where video games had gotten better, and I just hadn't upgraded my computer in enough time. So it was like that game that catalyzed me to have to get a new computer.
My main problem with Diablo 2 Necromancers was my skeletons would always get lost, and they just disappear.
They just wander off.
You had to like build something to make a new one. Yeah. So you're dealing with a very high fantasy, high magic world, then, for sure. And it also seems like your world is very religion based. Everything is, a lot of it's based around the angels, the gods. Is that something that usually attracts you in other lore? Like, do you like to play in other games that are more religion based?
I hadn't considered that it was religion based. I guess you're right. The one main character that is present throughout every bit of lore and is the main driving source of conflict and adventure is the archangel that I had mentioned that became a demon, Oakhurst. Oakhurst the Corrupt is the root of everything. And he becomes he gets to the point where as long as there's corruption, he is around. He cannot be destroyed without destroying all corruption. To the point where Gallipae is destroyed and he's still there.
Okay, so you definitely seem to gravitate towards that. Now, is this you enjoy the idea of demons and angels because it's like an extra planar thing, not necessarily religion? Then is that where you're getting like? Is it flow more towards the planes and other realms and the hells and the abyss?
Consider things that I don't know.
You've never been that introspective on it.
I've never thought about it that
Somebody
way.
has to ask the deep philosophical questions today because Jeff's not here. So
for me, like that's for me, like one of the big origins of storytelling is the Greeks. Like that's when I got into like Greek myths and like I don't know middle school. And what is great to me, I'm arguably obsessed with it as a DM, is making up religious lore, because it's all that like they cry a tear and the tear becomes a thing and they cut off their hand and their hand becomes a separate thing, and it's like everything is all creation mythos. You don't have to justify anything, and it's fucking great. And the irony is I never play clerics in game. I don't really even like being religious characters, but as a DM I love building religious mythos. Like it's great.
Yeah.
I'll make a dozen cults and churches, but if you're like, hey, you want to make like a knight order game, like there's a fucking bunch of knights, they wear armor. Like, I don't care.
I will agree with almost everything you said. The only thing I would not agree with is, in my case, I have a great time playing clerics and paladins. It's
I don't know. I'm a mage guy. Like I mean, a cleric if he has a lot of like spell throwing, but mages are my jam. I'll do mages all. That's what I want to do all day. But I like having powers.
Yeah.
That's why I like if it's
in this game you get deity powers no matter what class you are, because I wanted to.
That's cool.
I guess this does have more to do with religion than I thought.
I noticed that last night. Or the other night. That's why I wrote down that question. Make sure I asked you as if it heavy influence, because I was like, man, even Jeff's like fighter had like a god power like given to, or he was a paladin, but like even the other fighters had like powers that were given to them by their deities. So I was just curious how much that really played into your fascination with the game. Like,
it wasn't on purpose to make it about religion, but it kind of was. I just never noticed it. I wanted to make it so that something that in most games for almost every character class is pure role playing, and then for some character classes is very important, like deities. That's the reason I did it. It wasn't because I was like, hey, I want deities to be super important. It was because in like D&D, deities are important to clerics. Deities are important to paladins, but to everyone else, it's like an afterthought. And if you look back in history, it's like everybody cared about the deities.
I often say that about D&D. That every character probably, if you look at most game worlds, D&D based or otherwise, when there's pantheons of gods, usually the moment you get to pantheons, the answer is that everybody somewhat worships them to a degree. So
yeah,
right.
Everybody should have a patron deity, even if they're not powered by it. Like, so that's what really, in my opinion, should set things like warlocks and stuff apart, where it's like this warlock doesn't have a deity. He's got some other nefarious patron that gives him powers, like, which is where you would get into more of those kind of concepts. But I've always thought that about just standard fantasy, high fantasy worlds in general with pantheons, is that everybody should be. It's just interesting that you went the extra step and said, no, everybody's not only probably going to have a patron deity, everybody's getting something from them.
That's cool.
Yeah. That way you're not just, it's not reliant on the player to figure out, hey, I want this character to be worshiping this deity because it's role-playing reasons. It gives them an incentive to start using that role-playing tool. is the point behind it, because I noticed a lot of players will have deities, but they won't really do that much with that deity. It's a role-playing tool in my mind, and it incentivizes you to use that role-playing tool. If you're already getting bonuses from that deity, you have requirements that you must do for the fact that you worship that deity and all that stuff.
So if they fail to follow the tenets, do they lose powers like an old school paladin?
That's for the GM to decide.
Okay.
You leave that up to whoever's GMing the game, and
yeah. That is never explicitly stated yes or no in the rules.
Okay.
Okay. Does it happen to more of the true religious classes like Paladin, or do they have that in place though? And the others, it's kind of like maybe.
There is. I don't really have a code of conduct for Paladins. However, there is a specialty class that Paladins can take. I think Crusader is the only one that has a code of conduct. And they must follow the code of conduct or they lose their powers from that specialty class.
Okay. And specialty classes are like subclasses? Like you take a class and then you specialize, or are they completely separate classes?
They're like a cross between subclasses and prestige class. Like they're a prestige class that only this class can take, and yeah, that's about.
But you can't start out level 1 with it. You have to add it on, like after the fact. Okay.
Yeah,
but you build it kind of like a prestige class then.
Yeah, you must be at least 5th level. You must have 4 complete levels of something else to take a specialty class. So your 5th level is your first level that you can be a specialty class. Okay. And there was something else I was going to say. It's gone now, though. But yeah, that is. It's not coming back. Never mind.
And it's gone. So
that's like his brain farts my whole life. Like when you're holding a whole world in your head, and then all you ever see in your world is all the holes. God damn it! I need to write more. Like,
so do you feel like there are particular types of stories that your system is better for telling?
Not particularly.
I mean, obviously, high adventure, lots of travel. Like,
okay, yeah.
Naval. Do you have good naval rules? Like, is there what do you feel like the best kind of?
Because we don't have good naval rules. We're just like Bab's gonna do a fucking tidal wave. So why are we gonna bother?
I will admit that if you're gonna run a game, if you're gonna run a Heroes of Gallipae game, it helps to have magic everywhere in the game. You know, if magic is rare or if it's non-existent, then it kind of messes with things a bit. I have done naval warfare. I do not have a clue whether I did it right or not, whether I did it realistically or not, because that was before I knew anyone who had done anything on a boat.
Yeah.
So I was watching the wisdom check a few weeks back where you were talking about naval stuff, doing stuff on a boat in tabletop role-playing games and how it's different from books and stuff like that. And the guest, I don't remember who it was.
It was Chris Jackson, I believe, the writer, the author.
Yeah.
Who had,
Nice.
I was watching that and I'm like, you know what? I may have been completely off in what I was doing. But I figure while it's not tailored specifically to boats, the way it works you can manipulate it to the point where it works realistically. I just don't know if I've done that.
If you have a ground rules for vehicles, then that's really kind of all you need, and then a GM could just alter it from there. So then that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to a degree, certain amount of physics are always broken once maps pop out, no matter what.
Well, physics are broken the moment you sit down and say, we're going to play an RPG.
Well,
There's
that's true.
There's no physics.
But it's just always weird then when you try to include it back in. And when you go from vehicle rules on the water, suddenly people want to try to include more physics back in.
Right.
And that's not how it works. Stick with mechanics.
Don't do it.
Just don't worry about it. Just let it go. So let's talk a little about maybe some other systems and stuff you have in the game. We kind of touched a little on how your magic systems sort of work. Are there like different schools of magic?
There are technically not any that are stated outright, but it is made clear, sorta, that druids and priests cast different magic than mages.
So there's a split between arcane and divine.
Kinda. I'm drawing a blank as to where it comes in, but I do remember saying something about it in one of the rules. I think it's with a deity. A deity requires a certain deity requires you to either be a mage or a druid instead of a priest or a paladin. No, that wouldn't work because I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there are certain deities or something like that do discern between arcane and divine magic, even though it's never really part of the rules in any other way.
But but all magic comes from a deity, or does arcane come from something else?
So the way magic works is it comes from mana. Mana was originally relegated to the grand gods, who passed it down to the deities, who passed it down to the angels, who passed it down to the dragons. And then the dragons passed it down to the lesser races, as they're known. Actually, they're called civilized races according to the lesser races, but everything else calls them lesser races. Anyway, so each time the mana was handed down to a less powerful creature, it was diluted and made less powerful itself.
Sure.
And the civilized slash lesser races cast their own form of the mana. They speak in a specific language and manipulate the mana as it comes out of their mouth in a specific fashion with their hands to tell it basically, hey, you be a fireball, or hey, you be an icicle shot.
Sure.
And so mana is not necessarily what I'm trying to get to, in essence, is mana is not necessarily arcane or divine. It's just mana.
Sure.
It's just what you're using it to become.
So it's just like a natural energy
of
the planet or whatever. It's just like a natural energy that's there to tap into.
Yeah, it's an energy that comes from the divine. But other than that, it's sort of natural. It's as natural as anything is, really.
Okay.
Let's switch gears. There's some interest in the chat about the publishing process. So how did that start? How long did it take? What has changed since then?
So what I did is I started before my company was actually a company. I started publishing on Amazon.com as an ebook. That was not going so well. So when I got my company, I started publishing a PDF on my own website with, I think it's called Selfie is the app that it uses. So right now you can just buy digital copies. That's all there is.
Okay.
But I plan to have. I keep moving this back, but I'm dead set to have a physical copy available by this time next year.
Do you have a publisher set up for that?
I plan to sell it. I really don't know what I'm doing here, but I plan to sell it directly to Battlegrounds RVA if they will accept it. I plan to sell it on my Facebook store, which is not a thing yet, but it will be soon.
Okay.
I also plan to sell it on Libris Arcana, but they haven't said whether they want to do it or not yet either. We're just chatting about it at this point.
They're a dice company too, right?
Yeah, they are. That's how I found out about them, is through Defenders of Cobalt.
Yeah, so they sponsor Defenders of Cobalt. They do monthly dice subscriptions. So for a game that requires so many dice company.
That's not a bad way to go.
That's not a bad way to go in there.
That's not a bad way to start.
So, so what do you think at this point you're short of getting to published in physical form? Then are you looking at like where else do you think you need to? Is there anything else you feel like you need to do to your game, or do you feel like it's kind of ready as is? Like I think a lot of people who are creators never are satisfied with their work, even if it's ready to go. They're always adding. Is there a point where you feel good? Like
I haven't. Here's a big dark secret. I haven't sent it to an official editor yet.
Oh, okay.
So I was just talking with Battlegrounds about it, and they said that they like the game. And I may be overstepping here. I hope they don't see this and go, "Hey, you said something we didn't say."
You are greatly overstepping our reach.
We wish we had that sort of reach where all the.
If we had that kind of reach, we'd be like,
already.
Be careful.
But
we're just screaming into the void right now. That's all that's happening.
They talk to me and they're like, "Yeah, we like this game and we're willing to take another look at it, but right now there's quite a few typographical and grammatical errors in it." So it's once I get those looked at, which I am doing a few quick edits myself of what I noticed as they were looking it over.
Sure.
And then once I get those looked at, I plan to send it out to a buddy of mine who actually does that for a living. And he's going to do it as a favor to me, B, barter, and C, a little bit of actual money. Because I can't afford at this point the kind of money that it takes for a professional editor to take a look at it.
Sure.
Of course.
Are you going to do digital only, or are you going to do a hard copy?
Right now it's digital only. I will have hard copies available. I'm determined to have them by this time next year. Whether they're just on my Facebook store or not, if all else fails, they'll be on my Facebook store.
So this is because we have a guy who does this quite a bit. Do you beat the trail at conventions? Do you go to any of the major conventions out there? You're on the East Coast, so I'm sure there's a few out that direction. Like, do you try to hit any major game conventions and talk to publishers and show them any of your stuff?
I have in the past. This year I had to take a break to heal my monetary issues.
Oh yeah, well that happens. Money's money.
Yeah, but this, by the way, is the rule book that I showed Battlegrounds. It's going to be about this size because it's going to change a couple pages, but not that much. But yeah, that's what I had to show them. And
does that, if that's the book that you're looking at about the size, does that include a bestiary? Does that include like what is essentially like all the rules for dungeon masters and players?
Absolutely everything that you need to play the game. It will also come with a link in the back so that you have Mithril members access to everything that I ever come up with. So this book will be on my Facebook store, probably about $40 to $50. It will come with not only everything to play with all the base rules, but it'll come with all sorts of maps that I've created, with modules, campaign settings, character artwork, whole bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Good.
And just for, this is a good time to go ahead and mention it. You can currently get a digital copy of Heroes of Gallipae.
Yes.
And is that version 1.5? Is that what you're calling it?
Yes, Heroes of Gallipae 1.5.
And we've included that in the links down in our panels today. If you'll see the emblem there for Heroes of Gallipae. If you click on that, that will take you to where you can get a copy of the game. And did I hear you say something about how you can get a copy of the game free currently?
Yes, there's a free version that comes with one small map, 7 characters to play with, and enough rules to use those characters and the monsters that are in the map.
So this is kind of your version of the red box to get people in the door and playing it a little bit. So that's not a bad idea. I'm just pointing out that that is down there. You can go to the link there. Also underneath there on the links is links for your Discord and your Facebook group. But the other one in there I want to get you talking about just a little bit, because you're kind of bringing it up here a little, is that you do cartography and make maps.
Yes. Mostly I stick to dungeon and building maps, but I will do world maps or terrain maps. For those, I ask for a rough sketch, and rough sketches, I literally mean rough sketch. I've had people just doodle on a normal composition notebook and hand it to me, and I'm like, okay, I got this. Scan it and fix it up nice for them. And there are examples at that link for everything I have, for each level that I have done, and it says roughly how long it would take me, or how long it did take me to do that particular map, and then the price range for something similar. And there's a spot where you can drop me an email if you want about that. Right now, I have plenty of time for commissions. That's all I'll say.
I was going to say, and you do these for commission. So that is...
Yes. And I am relatively affordable. The most expensive map I mention on there is for like $50.
And these are like digital for Roll20 maps. Are these physical maps that you get like sent to your door, or
no? They're
all digital.
They're digital. Yeah,
they're digital maps that you could put into Roll20 or other places.
Right. And the dungeon and building maps in particular are great with Roll20, because I'll send you the copy I send you will be titled so that it'll tell you how many squares by how many squares it is on Roll20.
Okay.
Cool. Do you have like a specialty? Do you feel like there's a kind of map you're the best at making at? Is it dungeons or?
Dungeons and buildings. That is my specialty.
Dungeons and buildings.
The dungeons look clean.
I have done more bars than anything else.
More taverns and bars.
But I will tell you, there's only so many things you can put into a tavern and bar.
Yeah. It's true.
And I've done a lot of them, so.
Plus, at the end of the day, everybody kind of wants it to be what it is. Like, you can throw in like one or two off things, but they end of the day they want a tavern. They don't want to really.
And I will converse back and forth with people, make sure it's exactly what they want. And I never charge until after they're happy and say they're okay with it. So it's not an upfront fee. I am aware that I am not very well known, and it's fine with me that you're not stuck paying before you see the product. So yeah, that.
Do you prefer with dungeon maps then? Do you prefer the tactical part of the map? Like, do you spend a lot of time, effort thinking about things like where difficult terrain ought to go, where these sorts of things are? Because I mean, if someone's buying the map, they may not necessarily be making it for Heroes of Gallipae. They may be using it for D&D. Like, do you need to know the system, things like that?
I generally will ask what the theme of the map is, like, and then I will converse if it's like. If it's, let's say, a kobold lair, I'll converse with them about, like, okay, so in your world, in your mind, how do kobolds generally fight? Do they have lots of traps? What's this? What's that? And I will lower the price if they label each room, like, this room is a bedroom, this room is an armory, this room is a forge. If they give me that information, it makes it so much faster and so much easier for me to do the map. It drops the price quite a bit.
Well, that's cool. So, I guess what I was thinking is like, I have a couple of maps for Pathfinder that I purchased from my game shop for my live game that I'm running. I needed like a city slum. And so I purchased a couple of these Pathfinder maps, not thinking in my head at the time I bought it that it's designed clearly for Pathfinder, and I'm playing 5e. And like, you can see, like, there are bottlenecks in places, there's small corridors, and I'm like, there's so much movement, and like the rogues want to disengage, but there's nowhere to disengage to because everything's 5 foot wide. Like, they clearly built this thing with the intent of it being for Pathfinder, and I did not take that into consideration when I bought the map. So just curious if those kinds of things come up, like if you think about what system is going to be played in when you're making.
And I will, and like I said, I will converse back and forth between the person that ordered the map. It's like, yeah, what did you mean for this to be for? And I generally do a rough hand sketch, a hand-drawn sketch, and then scan it and send several options, so that if I'm doing it with, let's say, Pathfinder in mind, and they're doing it and they're ordering it with 5e in mind, and they're not realizing that we're on a different page there, what I'll do is I'll send 2 to 3 rough hand-drawn sketches and let them choose between those before I ever put it on the computer. And even if they don't like any of them, they can tell me that, and I'll just give them more options.
Okay,
that's cool.
I understand that you've got to have lots of conversation back and forth to actually get what the customer wants.
Well, clients, they don't know what they want until they're looking at what you made and they know they don't like that. And that's all the time.
So,
like, that's rough.
Do you consider yourself a fan of tactical style games?
Do
you like the dungeon delve, I guess, is what I'm asking?
To a point. I I do enjoy dungeon delves. I do enjoy overland travel, and I enjoy all the aspects of it. I'm really not that specific in what I enjoy in role-playing games in any way. Like I said, I enjoy all types of characters. I enjoy all parts of the role-playing and combat experience. I enjoy just about everything. The only parts that I am not that in favor of are the bard seduces everything.
Yeah, the tropes, like
the
all
trope.
the meme tropes that are now out, like, yeah, it's weird watching the title change with like D&D memes, like what goes from being popular to not popular to bard seduces everything that's old.
Well,
Also, edgy rogue whose parents are dead.
Jeff's firing in a question from the chat, and I was going to ask this next. One of the reasons why I asked that question, well, a couple of reasons, was first the fact that there was no like opportunity attacks or things of that nature kind of shows that like maybe you want to steer a little bit away from some combat tactics, but yet at the same time we noticed there really wasn't a lot of social systems in the game. There wasn't a lot for social roles necessarily. There's a lot of combat exploration stuff, but we noticed that like in conversation with the barkeep, whatever, except for the drinking game. The drinking game was fantastic. But you get the most detailed cocktail bar rules I've ever seen in a TTRPG yet. That was
booze rules.
Awesome. Booze rules were awesome. But we were noticing there was kind of a lack of like social, like there wouldn't seem to be a lot of social powers or anything other than getting your gear a little cheaper with a charisma helmet I had.
That's very first edition. Like all dungeon crawl, but then the social is you. Like you are the social. Is that
right?
Is that where you want to be?
That's true and not true at the same time. Many of the features I tended to choose for Saturday session. I tended to choose features that would be beneficial or useful in that session.
Okay, so
features,
are there some detailed charm rules if you want to seduce the demon waitress or whatever?
Okay, there's no seducing rules. I don't know.
He kind of just covered that.
But there are rules like professional drinker. You already mentioned the drinking, but there's rules for brawling contests, and there's a feature that makes you better at that. There's rules for collecting animals, being like a rodent collector, where you have massive amounts of pets of like rats and rabbits and mice for pets. There's one where you collect exotic bugs, and you get 3 exotic bugs in your collection per level. And then there's features that I'm putting in that are just more role-playing features. Features are really where the role-playing comes in most. Okay. But there are the whole last chapter of the game is different contests and different things that you can do for fun in town.
Okay. And don't think that that's any knock on your game, because like I consider D&D to have crap social rules.
Yeah.
There's like 2 skills maybe that you need. Like if you got bluff and intimidation, you're good to go. I mean, then they're just simple like single die rolls.
It's like
they're very
persuasion, deception, intimidation, insight.
Yeah. And I will admit that I am not that good at improv as a DM or as a GM.
That's a skill you work on as you do it more, though.
You get better with time on that one.
And what you were remarking on was partly that. I don't do well improvising conversation. And since you can never, ever trust that a character is, or that a player is going to do what you think, I never
Yeah.
write up the conversation
Yep.
past the first line.
No, that's a good move because like they never do.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time writing out the conversation like an author because that is not what they're going to do. Like, oh my God. Okay. So 2 games ago,
We're gonna get him started now. Here we
2
go.
games ago, I am listening intently at the end of the night. You know, guys, we should really do this next time. Let's do this. We're going to do this. Yes, we're definitely going to do that. Next thing, I'm like, okay, cool. That's what I'll work on in the downtime. I'll make this giant thing because that's where they said they're going to go. Next game comes around. Andrew, do they go there? No, they do not. No, they fucking don't. They talk themselves out of it for reasons that escape me and go in a completely other direction because. And there it is.
You know what it is? You know what the problem is, Levi? Is that we have like sometimes 14 to 21 days to sit down and think about it.
I know.
Like if we had another hour of gameplay, we would have done what we said. But you give us 3 weeks to sit around and think about it. We'll come up with 100 other things we should do.
He's speaking truth. I'm just siding with wisdom. That's all I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
There's no point in writing out the conversation.
This is the wisdom check.
That's right.
That's right.
One good kickoff line. He's not wrong.
So the only reason why I was curious about those kinds of things is because, like, in the little one shot we did with you, the little waitress, bartender who turned out to be some kind of an angel, or a spoiler alert, it's an angel, kept talking about us going upstairs and taking a nap in the bed. And for a second, I was looking at a sheet. I was like, "Is this like a seduction roll? Can I get you to come up there or whatever?" Like, it's like,
no.
Is there a way
It's
this
not
thing
a
is that
seduction
direction?
roll.
No, it was not. It was not.
There's not a seduction roll. You're not listening.
I know. I heard him. I was just
The
saying.
bards don't seduce in this world. It's bad.
You get like 70 classes in the game. No bard, right? There's no bard.
Oh, they can
they're
bard.
Actually, no. Bards, inquisitors, and warlocks are the next thing I'm working on.
Okay.
All right, so the seduction rules are coming. That's what you're saying.
No. Yeah, okay.
They're just not in the game.
Okay.
There will never be seduction rules.
Is it like
Heroes of Gallipae 2.0 seduction rules included? That's the patch that's coming in.
Heroes of Gallipae 3.0, the path of seduction? It's a whole supplement only about
The whole
that.
supplement.
It's like, if you want this one supplement, seduction exists only here. Is it a novel concept that the bard, I don't know, plays music, like, or tells a story that doesn't involve sleeping with a waitress?
Well, right now it's. I'd have to look at the Bard again. I finished the Bard a couple weeks ago. It's quite a hefty additional book on character options. So
Okay.
I don't remember 100% what the Bard is built for. I think it's more of an all hand that has music.
Okay.
Well, don't worry. Nobody in any edition knows what the bard is built for. It literally. If you don't know what your bard is built for, you are down the path of making a correct bard.
You are a bard. I don't know what I'm doing around
exactly
here,
how that
guys.
I mean, it is.
To me.
It would be fair to say that the Bard is an all hand with music, because when I designed the all hand, it was to make people happy when they're like, "Oh, you don't have bards in your game," and I'm like, "I don't like bards because of the way people play them, but I have all hands, which are bards without music." So
Okay. So like orators and like speakers and
they're the ones who are masters of they do a little bit of everything, but they're not great at any.
jack of all trades, master of none.
That's it. Jack of all trades, master of none.
That's
I was
correct.
going to say master of all trades, jack of none, but that wouldn't
That's
work.
backwards.
Well, master of all trades, jack of waitresses. I don't know.
But so yeah, that's where my all hands were originally, and I messed with the statistics of an all hand a little bit, and then gave them a couple songs that they could sing Sort of like the song abilities in D&D 3.5. I haven't played a bard in 5e, so I have no idea what they're like.
They've been generally made useful. Now they're one of the more popular classes. They're like they play like a sorcerer that can fight and heal. So now they're kind of they're super well rounded and really utility to fit into any party.
It's kind of a matter of which college you take.
I kind of feel like if you take lore, it covers everything you need to do, really. And the other
lore lets you dip into other classes a little bit, so you can kind of pick up things that you want to do.
I will say that one of the reasons I have had this kind of disdain for bards was not because I always had, but because I had a bad experience. I was DMing for someone and they're like, hey, you know, I found a way to make a bard that you can't kill. I'm like, you have intrigued me, sir. So he made this bard that is technically and supposedly unkillable. And I came up with a way to kill him. But he got all up in my face because I was making rules as a DM that were not in the book.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if you're the DM, you got ultimate smite ability if you really want it, I suppose.
So he read it all up and he's like, how was he unkillable? Like, what about him made him unkillable?
Well, one thing was he was using a loophole in a couple of feats, one of which was an epic level feat that allowed him to have unlimited henchmen. You
said epic level, so I get it.
Yeah,
that tells me everything.
Yeah.
And it was a really bad experience, but, you know...
Just soured you to bards forever.
I should not have taken it out on the bards, and that's one reason why I'm bringing them back into the game.
He took it out on bards everywhere.
All bards.
Real or imagined.
It takes one bad bard to ruin the whole bunch.
Oh.
But yeah, the new character options book is going to have new almost everything. It's going to have new classes, new races, new deities, new features, new spells, new specialty classes, all of the above. And it's going to have rules for 0th level adventurers so that you can adventure and get used to the mechanics before you commit to an actual build. And it's going to have rules for commoners so that you can actually have a commoner class person, sort of like the commoner classes in the DM's guide in 3.5.
Okay. So
that's cool.
Kind of working towards the Dungeon Crawl Classics angle there.
Yeah. I've been messing with other rule books for a while, and I've actually come out with 2 versions of a animals rule book where it's got pets and mounts and dogs of various types that are both useful and completely useless in combat. That book is going to be where your role playing comes in quite a bit, because there's things like you can buy and train, let's see, a tadpole or something like that.
Are you yourself an animal lover?
I am, but and I was always a little bit dismayed when I looked at the rules for dogs and horses in D&D. It's like there's 2 types of dogs. There's riding dogs and there's dogs.
Right.
I'm like,
there's 2 types of horses. There's war horses and riding horses. Yep.
Oh, like that's a little wrong. It's just so wrong. But so I came up with a system for dogs in like 15 to 20 breeds for D&D 3.5, and then 4.0 came out and I kind of set it on ice. And then I was discovering it again when I was working on after I had published 1.5 of Heroes of Gallipae, I just came across it. I was cleaning my room and I'm like, I forgot about this. And I decided to put it in the next book. So I've got a whole bunch of breeds of dogs. I kind of went off the rails on the horses a bit. I didn't use many actual horse breeds.
Are you making up your own special breeds for Gallipae?
Yeah, none of the horse breeds are actual breeds. I don't think. There's just a whole bunch of weird ones. And then the exotic mounts, I had fun with that. You can ride anything from a great white shark to a giant tortoise to a bear of several varieties. And then there's the just plain old pets that have absolutely no purpose, but just to have fun with. And I have a whole bunch of them, probably about 8 or 9 pages of them. Just stat blocks. And so I've been doing stuff like that with extra rules for a while, and I just wanted to get back to things that were important instead of just role-playing stuff. And I decided to give my players more options with the character options doc. But going back to something I wanted to mention a long time ago, when you were saying you can buy this game, a digital copy of the game, what you were actually buying, just so you're prepared, is a PDF with a link to a Google Drive folder where you have all of the current and future stuff is going to be.
Okay.
So if you buy the Mithril members access, that's literally everything for Heroes of Gallipae ever is going to be in that folder. And that includes all updates. Like if you want to buy the game and you're like, yeah, but I'm not so sure I like this idea of there being spelling and grammar and typographical errors. Well, that's going to change in about a few months. There's not going to be any of those anymore.
Okay. So it's a way for them to have it now and also wait for a cleaner product, and it's all available anyway.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what I'm going to have ready soon is if you buy a lower membership that has it'll still have all the updates, but it'll have less stuff. Like the silver members is just the base rules. The gold members is all the rules, but no maps or anything like that. Anyway, if you buy one of those and then you realize you want to upgrade later on, you only pay the difference between the old membership and the new membership.
You know what you're talking about here, and you're out saying it. Maybe you don't have it set up on there. What you do? Patreon. What you're dealing with is Patreon level stuff. Like putting things behind those kind of paywalls is how Patreon would work well for what you're wanting to do. It sounds like.
I tried Patreon. It was going nowhere, and it was.
I think his camera froze.
Did it?
You froze.
We can hear you.
We hear you just fine. You can go ahead and keep talking. It's okay.
But somebody
you
cast time stop on you.
Well, that was
there
nice.
we go.
Back.
Anyway, so I tried Patreon for a while, a few times actually, and it was more trouble than it was worth because I wasn't getting any patrons, and I was committing to doing things that I couldn't always commit to doing.
You couldn't follow through on the commitments.
Yeah, I couldn't. Not 100% of the time, and I feel that on Patreon, people are going to expect you to like every single time follow through on those commitments. And
yeah, well, that is part of Patreon. That's true.
if you commit to having like one thing come out a month, like one new rule book come out a month, and then you don't have that new rule book come out every month,
Yeah.
your patrons are not going to be happy.
No, it's true.
And sometimes with the way my scheduling and the way my mental health goes, it wasn't going to happen. Plus other reasons that I won't get into.
Okay. Sure. So you were talking about at one point having a stream set up. You're working on stores getting to where you could do some streaming or things of that sort. Is that still something you're looking to do with Heroes of Gallipae? Are we going to get a channel for Heroes of Gallipae soon so we can see more of it now that we've had at least one little session put up on stream somewhere?
Maybe, but it's going to be quite a bit out in the future.
Okay.
Just from the technical end of things.
Yeah, I just have to get better equipment.
Okay, well, that's understandable.
We all had that hurdle. It wasn't fun, but yeah, we're there.
All right.
We're approaching midnight, so
we are approaching the end of stream here. I do have some closing announcements I need to go through. So once again, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and tell them again who you are, what you're about your product a little bit, and where they can find you. Well, where they can find you, the stuff's down the panels. But go ahead and close out of here a little bit. And
so I am Andrew Rogers from Lords of GallipaeGames. My games are all focused on replayability and customization more than anything else. You can find not only the links to buy down there, but if you click home on the link to buy, you can get to a place where you can get to all the descriptions of every game that I'm working on at the moment, which I believe there's like 8 of them. And I do take I'm open for map commissions. And I mainly do dungeon and building maps, but I can do world and terrain maps.
Chat is threatening to make you run an all bard game.
Oh no, they will never do that.
They're coming in with the all bards here at the moment. There's some bard love going on in the chat right now. So
that will never happen.
Well, we tried. We tried to get you an all bard game, chat. We did what we could. All right. So, Levi, I'll let you talk a little bit about when Everstorm's coming back.
Oh God. What do we say? Let me look at the date.
23rd.
23rd. Thank you. Everstorm returns on the 23rd. It is game 25. Does that sound right? 25?
That sounds about right.
Yes. And I don't like spoiling. So a lot of writing. The guys stand on the precipice of major choices. Maybe pursuing one or two of the big villains right now. So we'll see how that goes. Join us. Fear the Balron, demon of the seas.
And if you don't want to have to wait till the 23rd to see Levi, you just got to tune in this Thursday for Sea of Thieves. Levi will be there playing his Frenchman.
That's right. The Ginger Frenchman sails again.
The Ginger
aboard
Frenchman.
The Mange. Oui.
Again, I'm Dustin from TT2KB. I will be there Thursday for Sea of Thieves as well. Day before that, though, Wednesday again, show up for Vermintide. It's a hell of a lot of fun sitting in chat for. I think you show up once and you get to make them deal with some fire were rats. It's good stuff. So
the fact that they get to wreck you through Twitch it
is amazing, and more games need to do what Vermintide has done. It is awesome. Truly amazing to get to see to play. Like it's so much fun. So after this weekend, then we don't have any games this weekend. Nothing Saturday, nothing Sunday, unfortunately. It brings us around to next Monday to the Wisdom Check, where we'll be back here again. Hopefully Jeff will be back. We're going to be talking Pathfinder 2. We're going to go rip through that book. We're
Pathfinder
going to talk about
2.
cool options. We're going to.
You are not going to rip through that book. That book is huge. You're not going to rip through that book.
He's had 3 months to read this thing. We're going to get through it. Don't you worry. He's had 3 months. We'll make it happen. Don't you worry. Pathfinder 2, fucking great, he says. So next week is going to be a lot of Jeff trying to sell me on Pathfinder 2 because he knows how much I love Pathfinder 1. Again, then, so that'll be next Monday. Following Thursday, Terra and Treefell returns for Chapter 4, Sins of the Father. If you haven't been checking out Terra and Treefell, it's his Zweihander RPG game that I'm running. It's here every other Thursday. The previous 3 episodes are in the collections here on Twitch. I don't believe any of them have made their way to YouTube yet, but maybe soon. The following day after Terra and Treefell, I do appear on Grim and Perilous Gaming, where I do play in another Zweihander game ran by Matt Jowett, who's one of the official DMs for Zweihander over there, and that's The Enemy Within. I play a Battle Nun.
Everybody, Dustin's everywhere.
I am all over the place. Those are all of my current appearances that I have lined up. So again, next Monday for Wisdom Check, we will be doing the giveaway of this fantastic necklace. I'm going to get it on screen today. I'm going to do good. Right in front of my face, as Jeff always says.
It's actually in focus.
It's dice. It's a necklace. It was made by Tara Jane Sands, who is the voice actor for the Pokemon Bulbasaur. She has a jewelry.
Bulbasaur made a necklace.
That's right.
You can have it.
She has a jewelry company that she runs out of Los Angeles called Looped LA. You can find the Etsy store link down there in the panels. So next week, though, we're going to give this one away. You do have to be a sub. It would also help if you're here so I can get your address. Things like that. But I will hunt you down if I have to. So let's see. Anything else coming up here that I need to mention on the way out?
No, that was a mountain of stuff. I think that covers it.
I'd like to think that's... Oh, no, wait. There is one more. I got one more thing here on the list. And because they're in the chat, I do need to give them a quick shout out. Huge shout out to our fellow stream teamers, the Grouch Couch. They finished up season 2 last night.
Yeah.
Drunks and Dragons. If you don't watch Drunks and Dragons, you should. It's a hell of a good time.
Grouchies?
Air Laser, who is our newly appointed mod here for the channel. So Air Laser, congrats on being a mod.
Thanks for modding, Laser.
I forgot to bestow upon you your mod powers before today, so thanks for calling me out. But I got it fixed midstream, so you're good to go now. And the Liching Hour, and boy, are we all talking some fantastic plans for Gen Con. It's going to be great. So we also have a merch shop that's going to be set up soon, and I actually think it is set up. We just got to get an account hooked to it, and it'll be coming soon. So you'll get to look forward to a bunch of that stuff coming. Short of that, I think we can go ahead and close this thing up. So once again, everybody, thank you for showing. This has been a Wisdom Check. Dustin, that's Levi. That's Andrew.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a lovely left of it.
Click the link down there for Heroes of Gallipae and have a good weekend.